What's up, music teachers? Ben here from Social Media Music Teacher. If you've ever said, I'm just a music teacher, but I'm not a salesperson, or I know I have to do sales, but how do I make myself come across less salesy? If you've ever said these to yourself, you are not alone. So if you're wanting to create a six-figure studio, but feeling icky about signing up new students at your new rate, you'll want to make sure that you check out this new interview because once I learned that being a music teacher meant that I was already a great salesperson, signing up students at a high rate that aligns with my values became so simple. And when you have a full schedule of students who really energize you instead of burning you out, it becomes so much faster to get you to that secure income that you need. So in this training, I bring on Cymber, one of our past successful clients. Cymber in the past, she was able to get to her first 10K a month, building her own online harp improv class. And she's still doing that today, but the reason why we're talking about sales is because she's also working as a salesperson and a sales trainer for the company that she works with as well. And she'll talk about it more inside of this interview. But I just want to give you some context on what we're teaching here and what you can expect. So we're going to learn about her sales mindset, structure, and scripts so that you don't have to fear sales anymore and feel confident signing up students who really align with your music studio. So hope you enjoy the video and I'll see you soon.
So yeah, I came up with this idea. Well, it's floating around in the atmosphere. It's not necessarily a new idea, but that teachers are always selling,
Mhm.
and especially music teachers are always selling because you're selling your students on the idea that they need to practice, that they want to get better. You encourage them through the process of learning the music, and in doing that, you're constantly you're constantly selling. So let's talk a little bit about what selling is versus
Yeah,
what
yeah.
most
Let's do
people think
that.
selling is. Right. So most people, they hear the word sales, especially music teachers, artists, sensitive people, all go, ooh, sales, icky. I don't want to do that. And it's because they have a specific definition of what sales is in their mind. And so negative sales attitude are so common because there are people out here who sell this way and it's gross. But arm twisting or high pressure or used car salesman or all those different images that people have of what sales is, they're out there. There's no question that they're out there. But the really great salespeople approach the conversation with you in a way that you don't feel gross, so it doesn't come out as gross. You're not even clear that you're being sold to, not in a manipulative way, but in a kinder way. So let me
Hmm.
then define what I think sales really is. Sales is problem solving, pure and simple.
Yeah.
And the best salesmen are teachers and doctors. So I
Mm.
want to talk about doctors for a minute because I really believe that good doctors, of course, but that doctors don't come up to you and go, here's a pill, I'd like you to take this, which is what we think sales is. Like, here's this thing, buy it, buy it, buy it, buy it. Really good doctor is going to say, so what's going on? How are you feeling? Not so good. How long has this been going on? What have you already tried to do to fix this yourself? Is it working? Is it not working? How long have you been trying that? Okay, so then are you like done trying to solve this problem yourself? Are you ready for some help? You are? Okay, I think I can help you. Those are the sales questions
Hmm.
that I learned in my sales training. And they apply to doctors, they apply to students. So if you have a student come to you, we'll talk about new students in a second, but existing students, so teachers can get this idea that they're actually doing this,
Yeah.
right? So a student comes to you with a piece that they are practicing, but they're having trouble with a particular passage. And so the questions I ask are, why is this giving you trouble? Do you know why this is giving you trouble? Like, it's a fingering thing. I'm a harpist, so we talk about that a lot in my teaching. Or is it a rhythm thing? Is it a notation thing? Are you having trouble reading the bass clef? What is the problem that's going on here, if they know? And then we dive into that and I say, okay, if it's a bass clef reading problem, which is pretty common, a lot of flute players come to the harp never reading the bass clef ever. So they
Mm,
need to read bass clef. So I recommend an app called Note Rush that I really love for learning bass clef or all clefs. But that's I just had a sales conversation where I'm selling them on the idea that it's a good idea to do this app and then go and practice this a little bit. And then they'll come back the next week and they're like, oh yeah, that was so much better.
yeah.
Did they feel sold too? No, because I'm not pushing it. I'm engaging them in the problem solving.
Hmm.
And this is, something that I really appreciate about the way you teach, Ben, the way you teach sales and teach a sales conversation is that it's so diagnostic.
Hmm.
We're solving problems and we're trying to serve the people that we're selling to. And so
100%.
that if music teachers can get their brains wrapped around the idea that really sales is a problem solving process with a check at the end.
Yeah. I love those. I love those. I always use the doctor frame. Like when I'm doing my sales or when I'm teaching sales, it's like we very it's almost like when we put our own ego into it, it hurts the students because we're not asking the right questions that they need to hear. And the questions that we may ask of like, hey, what happens if these problems don't get solved may seem uncomfortable for us, but it's important for them to answer for themselves as well. And doctors have to ask these important questions all the time, like on a much more severe level than us, right? But if that feels uncomfortable to them, they have to deliver uncomfortable news, but it's what's needed for the other person. I feel like that's like the true act of service. It's like putting our own ego aside and asking these uncomfortable questions, asking these questions that need to be answered by them for them to get to that next level. Um, it's about asking them and giving them the opportunity to have that conversation with themselves, which is important.
Mhm. Yeah, and if you ask those questions more or less in that order, and we can write them out and make them into a little handout
Yeah.
for somebody that I know who wants to have that. Um, but at every opportunity they have, at every question they have the opportunity to say, "No, I'm fine there. No, I'm fine." So when you get to the very end of the conversation where it's time to ask for money, they're in because they've had every opportunity before that to say no.
Hmm.
So now they're going to say yes. And
Yeah.
this, and one of the things that I learned from one of my other coaches is that sales is a language that brings people closer to the answer yes.
Mm. Yeah. Tell me a bit more about that. Like, how do you look at that?
Yeah. So that to me tells me music teachers, this is a natural fit for music teachers because as music teachers, we already speak another language. We speak music.
Hmm.
If we teach piano, we also speak a little Italian. And right,
Yeah.
forte, fortissimo, right, and and sales is just another language.
Yeah.
And I think part of the reason that people feel uncomfortable about it is they just don't know the language. And it's got some grammar to it. It's got some, we'll talk about scripts in a little bit. Scripts are really important.
Hmm.
And the whole idea of having a sales conversation, I think, is like having performance anxiety. Like if you don't
Mm.
know what you're doing and you get on the stage, scary as hell. Even
Yeah.
if you've prepared a lot, you can have a lot of performance anxiety. And the sales conversation is the same way. You prepare for the sales conversation the same way you prepare for a performance.
Yeah.
You practice, you role play, you work different sections, put it all together into this beautiful thing. And then when you're ready, you're much more likely to be successful
Hmm.
because you've practiced. And you encourage everybody to practice. They practice with you, they practice with each other, and that's really really super important because being prepared, it takes a lot of the fear out of it. But in the case of sales, it also takes some of the mystery or some misconceptions out of it.
Yeah.
You
I
do
think
not have to be slimy to sell. In fact, you shouldn't. It's the opposite.
exactly. I really like what you were talking about with all these analogies, bringing it back to what we've already done as music teachers. Especially because when we're talking to a new teacher and you have that sales process with a new student, you're trying to figure out what they are needing. Um, a huge mindset to fall back on is like treat these new students, treat your audience, treat your prospects as your own student. And the sales process just naturally flow because of that. I think like we try to separate like, oh, this is how I should speak to a prospect, or this is how I should speak to a student. But I'm always thinking like, if this is gonna be my future client, I gotta treat them like my client now, not when they pay me. Right? It's not
Right.
all of a sudden when they start paying me, it's not like they're gonna be a completely different client. That's how I can determine whether someone's gonna be a good client or a good or not so good client based on how are they as a prospect as well. Because once they start paying me, it's not like boom, they're gonna be a completely different person, right?
Right.
All that just happened with another like just time went on. That's it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And so when you start talking to them not as people, talk to them as people and not as some scary foreign alien being, right?
Yeah.
They're musicians. They want to have help. They're
Mhm.
contacting you because they want to know more about what you're doing and
Yeah.
how you can help them. And so one of the things that new teachers can do is start to make a list of the kinds of problems that their students already talk about, that they're already solving. So for me as a harp teacher, I teach a lot of improvisation, and people come to me because they've been reading music their whole lives and they're scared, or they've never read before and they're scared, and but they want to play music, they want to play their own music. So I have developed a list of just not I'm not making this up, right? I'm not making up questions. I'm listening to my people for what it is that they want me to teach them.
Mhm.
And then I make classes and have those conversations out of that. So it's again going back to the diagnostic thing that we were talking about earlier. When you go into a sales conversation, you could easily just call it a question and answer session,
Good.
right? Go
Yeah.
just go ask them some questions. Let's not call it sales. Sales is so laden with so much heavy, negativity. Just have a chat.
Mhm.
Find out what they're looking for.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're going to find out that they're looking for something that you can't do. And in that case, it's really nice to have a network of people who can do that, because then you can refer the student to somebody else. The last thing I want to say to a student is no.
Mhm.
I might say, no, I can't do that, but let me help you find another teacher. And
Yeah.
I'm generating that goodwill for that student. They're always going to, even if they never come back to me, they're going on into, a good relationship with somebody I know, like, and trust.
Mhm.
And that teacher's getting a referral that they didn't have to go out and hustle themselves.
Exactly, exactly. So for you, like, what do you feel like the biggest, I guess, like a mindset shift that most teachers need to have? Like, besides sales doesn't have to be icky, but when they're in the conversation, what do you feel like a mindset that is really important to have to like? What's your kind of like your fallback mindset?
Yeah.
The
So, so a couple things. So I like to do, this is a new exercise I learned from one of my teachers called the level 10 exercise, and you are free to use it too.
nice.
So when I show up to my desk, I check in with myself and I say, am I operating at a level 10? Oh no, maybe I need some coffee first. I'm at a level 6. Okay, coffee first. Then okay, now I'm at a level 10. And when I and what I'll do is just I'm just checking to make sure I'm in a good space before I get on the call.
Mhm.
To make sure the background's cleaned up. And lighting is on and good and all of that stuff, so that I don't have to worry about any of that. But I would say the biggest mindset shift for all music teachers is to move into a space of being willing to learn sales.
Yes, yes.
The solution to any problem always is get better at it. All music, life, sales, marketing, whatever. Wherever you feel like you're not doing as well as you could be, the answer is always get better at it. And that means reading. You've got wonderful scripts on you. We'll talk about scripts in a second, but you've got wonderful books that you've recommended to me over the last few years that we've worked together. I highly recommend your people read what you recommend because you vetted it already, right? So you're
Mhm.
saving me some time. But always, and then actually do the exercises, practice this stuff in the same way that you ask your students to practice.
Yeah.
15 minutes a day. Sit down and work through your scripts. If you don't have scripts yet, Ben's got wonderful scripts for you. Sit down and read through all of Ben's material again, just 15 minutes a day. You can munch through it just in little packages, little bits. But it's the same thing you ask of your students. And if you're asking them, you should be doing it yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I,
And that's
you
how you
know,
get good.
I think one of the most inspiring things that I've experienced with working with you, seeing you as a musician, as a teacher, as a client, um, it really has been your your ability to embrace being a beginner again, and you like stepping into creating your own course, like that's like kind of forcing you to be a beginner teacher again. Getting into sales, you're forced to be a beginner at a new skill as well. How would you help teachers who are at that stage where they need to be a beginner again, but they're kind of scared to do that? Like what would you say to help them embrace that mindset of being a beginner again?
Yes.
Because
So
that, yeah.
yeah, that's a really, you're bringing up a really important point. Embracing being a beginner again. I'll tell you a funny side story. So a few years ago, some friends, two other women friends of mine, decided we were going to form a femme punk band.
Okay. With harp and what else?
No, no, not
Oh,
with harp,
oh.
but we all decided we were going to play instruments that we never played before because we wanted to be experience what it felt like to be a beginner, be confused and be like,
Oh.
oh my, where do you put your fingers? Like, so I was playing electric bass, which I've never played before. My other friend is playing electric guitar, which she'd never played before, and another friend was playing drums, which she'd never played before. So on the one hand, it came together pretty quickly because we're all excellent musicians,
Uh-huh.
but at the same time, it was this hilarious couple of days of not knowing any, like, how are we supposed to do this if we don't know what we're doing? And so I think a sense of humor is really important.
Mhm.
Don't, lock down and make it so serious. Be willing to laugh about it. But being in that beginner space is like, there's a whole thing about Zen mind, beginner mind, being the beginner over and over and over again in life. In some ways, it takes the pressure off because you don't have to be an expert, but it does then put you back into places like where you were when you were a kid.
Mhm. Mm.
And
Exploring, just having fun with it.
having fun with it. Well, on the other side of that, as adults, we're used to being good at the stuff we're good at.
Yeah.
And so we think we should be good at everything.
Yeah.
And we forget that we were beginners at the stuff that we're now very good at. And so I'm always reminding, especially my adult students, that it's okay to be in that beginner place and start at and we all started with zero.
Mhm.
We all started, then went to one. We had our very first client, and then we went to two, and then it grew from there. But we all started there.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that I would say to new teachers who are coming into the program is be willing to be taught, be coachable, be willing to be a beginner, and you're going to go, everything's going to go much faster that way.
Yeah.
I, by the way, am a resistant personality type in general. So it's extra work for me to go, all right, coach,
You make it
I'll
look
do
so
what you
easy.
say.
Make it look so easy. You look so you make it look easy.
Oh, there's like that whole duck thing of like paddling like mad underneath the water.
For me though, I really felt that this year with getting into music production. Of course, I've had like all my life being a musician, but this year, um, just getting in back into seriously being a music producer has brought me back into that beginner mindset. And for me, I've just embraced it all. And the result of that has just been so much fun, but also so much surprise, and also like not as much surprise as well. Because like what's surprising to me is how fast I have progressed and how fast that I've started this year, and now I have like now I can create like professional level tracks on my own without anyone now, And and just the comparison between what I was making at the beginning of this year versus now, almost at the end, has been transformational. But also, it's not that surprising when I think about that because I've worked my whole life to this point. Like it shouldn't be a surprise that when I finally start applying it to music production, that I speed run my way through.
Yeah,
So same thing it goes for sales as well, where it's um, like just have fun with it. Be able to explore, be able to learn more, be able to surprise yourself on the ability that you have. But it's also not going to be surprising as well. You're going to be like, oh, yeah, I mean, I knew I had it in me because you had all this life as a musician already. You've accomplished it all. So
right.
another like just learning sales is it's a small bump in the road. That's it.
It's but I think you know, you're talking about embracing sales, that if you really embrace the entire learning process, it's going to change your teaching as well.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to become a better music
Communicate.
teacher because you're increasing your sales skills. You'll be able to sell this idea to students, you know, more easily. Oh, there's a recital coming up. You should participate in this, you know, that kind
Mm-hmm.
of thing.
Yeah.
Um,
Can I ask a question?
yeah,
So the thing that usually teachers go to now that stops them after okay, I can embrace being a beginner, yes, but now there's that fear of, okay, how is this going to affect myself, my business, and especially for like, especially for teachers wanting to switch to a new model. I get a lot of teachers hesitant about that because they have the fear of, oh, what if students leave? What if students don't like it? And for sales, especially, it's like, oh, what if what if I just keep, what if I raise my prices and I keep like losing students because of that, or I don't get new students because I'm not as good as sales as I need to be. How would you help teachers that have that fear of the fear of like, what if I'm losing out on a lot of things if I start to change, if I start to get into
right,
sales?
right. That's a really good question, and it's a real thing too.
Mm-hmm.
That just in life, as in the music studio, when you make changes, things are going. Some people are going to leave. Some people and new people are going to come in. One of the things that I always comfort myself with is that people continually make children who need to have music lessons.
Yeah.
So there's no shortage of students out there, but it can feel like that when someone leaves. And I always feel that way when a student leaves, even when
Mm-hmm.
they take a month off for Christmas, which is what's happening right now with some of my students. It's a little like,
Yeah. So
but then,
I think a good
but
question.
what,
Yeah, go ahead. Go
but,
ahead.
but what I want to say is that then you need to look at your entire business model so that you say, okay, my bottom line is still good, even though I have fewer students and I'm charging more, and it feels uncomfortable because I have fewer students and I'm charging more. My bottom line is still okay.
Yeah.
Oh, this thing that Ben said actually works. Okay, all right, I can trust that. But it's important that you're not just looking at the microcosm of are people in your studio or not, but the larger, like, is this, how's the studio doing? How are the numbers cooking out
Mm-hmm.
at the bottom?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
I think
important.
so now with like, because an example of the problem that I'm seeing is, let's just say a teacher makes changes, they start to lose students, they start to get discouraged because their numbers are lower, and that starts to affect now their sales conversations because they're kind of at a deficit.
Sure.
They have a little bit more sales breath now. How do you still maintain strong integrity, strong like communication, and making sure that you stay detached from the outcome, even when the business is maybe going through a recession.
Right. So this is where coaching is crucial, and spending time with someone like you is essential because and then you have to become the leader of your own life, and leaders provide encouragement to others. That's mainly their job, is to provide encouragement to keep people going. And so you have to become the leader of yourself when you get. And so, and if you, some mornings I get up and I'm like, I am not the leader of myself today. I get my tiny off to a coaching session or a, you know, a sales book or a highly, you know, motivational TED talk, or I'll put on my favorite dance music, or something to get my energy back up.
Hmm.
But I think it also, as I'm saying that out loud, I'm thinking that's a really good time to sit down and practice your scripts, because maybe you're feeling like a little nervous about having that conversation because you forgot what to say,
Hmm.
or you've changed the script somewhat and it's weakened the script a little bit. So you got to be careful about that. And that's why I always encourage, whenever I would do changes like that to my stuff, I send it off to Ben and have him take a look at it and make sure I wasn't doing silly things because I was scared. And so, and then I really encourage your teachers to, be in community with each other, keep supporting each other, celebrating every little win is one more bit of encouragement.
Hmm.
It doesn't have to be a big win, it could be a tiny win. And so one of the ways to keep yourself going is to recognize the tiny wins, especially when you're in transition.
Yeah, yeah, that's a big thing. That's a big thing that I always tell my clients as well. It's like when you are trying to find that certainty again, when you are feeling uncertain, the way to help out, the way to solve that is one, like embracing that, because in order to get through in order to get past the uncertainty, you got to take action even when you feel uncertain. That is
That's right.
that's how you build certainty. That's how you build courage. It's not courageous if the thing that you're going through is not scary at all.
That's
um,
right. That's right.
yeah.
And if I just saw a quote go by the other day that was perfect for this conversation, which was that
Uh-huh.
if you're waiting till you're not afraid, you're waiting too long. Every leader knows that the fear never stops.
Hmm.
It's just how you manage it, how you handle it, how you
Yeah.
work through it. You have your friends, you have your colleagues, you have your coaches, you have all this support, but you're the one who has to take the step. You're the one
Hmm.
who has to go forward. And so we haven't even talked about failure. Failure is a really crucial part of
Yeah.
success, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's how we
Exactly.
learn. It's painful, not my favorite way, to be honest. I think there are other ways to learn that are more comfortable. But yeah,
It's a
and
guaranteed way. It's a guaranteed way to learn.
that's guaranteed you're going to learn something from a failure. So, and we all, even though we all have our Instagram lives, our Facebook lives, we put our best foot forward, best face forward, whatever. Everybody's got failure.
100%. Yeah.
Everybody's got it. And I think what you're kind of pulling the curtain off of this topic with your clients, with your people. And whenever there's been some kind of failure, as a coach, you're there to go, you can do it, keep going.
Yes, yes.
Right. So back to music. Like I love
I,
the metaphor of music. Like you cannot stop in the middle of a piece. You've got to keep going. Even
hmm.
if you screwed up a measure, a whole passage, you can't stop. You have to keep going.
Yeah.
And okay, the next time you play it, you're going to play it better.
Yeah, that's how I got so good at like improvising. Is because I started playing piano for church when I was 12. So just
Uh-huh.
imagine like a little seventh grader having to play for the entire mass. And God, I remember I would be shaking every single week I because when I messed up, I stopped. And I didn't know how detrimental that was when you're playing for a choir. So I went through a lot of those. Now, like I can't stop if I tried. like
Right?
like my fingers just keep going. But yeah, going back to sales, I think it's important to when you're feeling uncertain too, like falling back on the fundamentals of what have you learned before, falling back on looking back on the transformation that you provide, all of those evidences of the testimonials you've created. That's what's going to get you your hype, your certainty back when you can see the physical evidence of, hey, I've done this before. I'm that teacher. I can do it. That's what's
Mm-hmm.
gonna help get you back. But then one last thing I was gonna add on with that, something I saw on Instagram as well that I thought was very, very powerful, is that if you're trying to get to the next level, you're trying to create a six-figure studio, and you are not willing to make changes and not willing to to make changes for your studio, like the changes that need to happen, like raising your price or anything, it blocks and it stops the other students that are willing to pay those prices from being able to work with you as well. You don't make any room for those types of clients who are willing to pay your prices, who do want to work with you at a close level. So
Yeah.
I like that. I like that, seeing it that way. And you were talking about it before, because the difference between like a music teacher who's going to stay stuck versus one that's like like a six-figure studio, or a teacher that is being able to reach their goals, is the belief in that there is always going to be people out there that want to work with you. There's always. I've been through so
Mhm.
many months, um, so many different months where things have just happened that were out of my control, like my Facebook account getting shut down,
Right. It
and
was crazy.
that was crazy, and I thought I was done. I thought I was cooked, and then but I just kept my belief high, and I did what I needed to do to get new clients through the door, um, and I showed myself that like it's possible. There are always going to be people out there who want to work with you, and that's the key. I feel like that's the big key with being able to play this long game. It's always believing that no matter what, even if there is a recession in the economy, that there's always going to, like, if you maintain your standards and maintain your boundaries and your prices and who you accept in the studio, there will always be the right people out there.
That's right. Yeah, 100%.
Mhm.
100%. I believe that. And the more you you know, your clients, your teachers believe that about themselves and raise their rates, the more it helps everyone.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah.
the teachers out there who are charging rock bottom prices because they feel like they have to do that to get the students are actually hurting everybody,
Mhm.
because if they raise their rates, we all rise up together. And yeah, so whenever I bump into teachers like that, I'm like, dude, you're not charging enough. You need to, not. I'm not saying you're dragging everybody down, but that's because that's not the right that's not the right message. But that they can. There is the door is always open for them to raise their rates as well,
Yeah.
and that helps us all.
I love that. Love that. So, people watching this, they're probably got different experiences in sales. Some are completely new. Some have been signing up music students for like all their lives. But for someone who's doesn't have that kind of like that formal experience in sales, or it's like, hey, I want to start improving in that aspect. Um, what's the first thing that they should do? What's the first thing they should think of in terms of either structure or scripting?
Yeah. So once your mindset's in the right place, then it's really a matter of following the recipe. The sales recipe hasn't changed because the way people buy hasn't changed. The same sales training I took 20 years ago is still works today. And so I said, learn that formula. You have it. Lots of business books have it. It's all a little, the recipe is a little variation, like maybe some ginger here, some cinnamon there, whatever. But the basic fundamental recipe for doing sales is the same. So learn that,
Yeah.
because if you learn it once, you'll have it for the rest of your life. You'll have it for all of the music students that you have from here till whenever you decide you're going to stop teaching.
Mhm. Did you
And
want to
that's
share? Did you want to share any anything? Did you want to share anything tangible, or do you want me to share some of those things we wrote in our notes? Like,
Oh, we can talk. Yeah, I
yeah,
can talk about that. Sure.
yeah. Let's talk about that.
So we'll just go through. You have your wonderful list of questions here to. So if you're getting it now, we're talking like into the sales call,
Yeah.
um, where you're actually talking to someone and you're starting to ask the diagnostic questions that I've been talking about here for a bit. So your first question is around the problem that they're trying to solve. So in order for someone to buy something from you, they have to need a need to solve a problem, or they're happy and they don't need to spend money.
Hmm.
So you got to find out if they've got a problem or not. And if they don't, then sign them up on your mailing list and see them next year or something like that.
Yeah.
But one of the questions that we ask is, what is your biggest challenge? What is the problem you're trying to solve here? So you want to know that. And then you want to know how important it is to solve this problem, because people have all kinds of problems that are not important and sit there languishing forever.
Yeah.
But this is, in order to have a good sales call with somebody, you have to have somebody who is really trying to solve a problem. So for me, that could be somebody who is classically trained, who's been playing their whole lives off of sheet music, and they're terrified, but they're tired of reading music. They want to get off the page. So there's enough tension in there, in that desire.
Hmm. I
Then
think,
the next,
can I add something with that?
yeah,
Yeah, kind of putting it back into that doctor frame that you're talking about. I think it's important to for me as a teacher talking to a student, I need to figure out if this is even like worth solving, right? Because you can have a problem. I could have a paper cut. I'm not going to go to the doctor for that, right?
right,
But if I have a broken arm and I have pain associated with that, then like a doctor's visit is
mm-hmm,
warranted. So
mm-hmm,
we got to figure out like, okay, they let's just say they're trying to play, they're trying to prepare for a performance that they have, or let's say audition, right? Say preparing for an audition, they have a problem, but this audition is something that they don't really like care about, so they don't really have a pain associated with that, right? They're
right,
not really gonna find a teacher for a problem that they don't care to solve. So we just want to make sure, like, we didn't even care about solving this problem. Is it even severe enough for us to be able to help them as
right,
well?
right.
Yeah.
Yep, yep. Because they won't move if the pain is, that's what we call it in sales, it's pain. But if the problem is not severe enough, they're not going to make a decision. They'll kick tires, they'll get back to you,
Yeah.
they'll never get back to you. So we ask these questions to help them make decisions at the various points in the
Yeah.
sales process.
I think what's also important too is that like we don't make up the pain,
Right.
right? Like I think an assumption that teachers have that stops them from even asking that is like, oh, I don't like I don't think they'll have a problem. Or,
Mm,
I don't think they'll care about solving this problem. Well, when we put our ego in front of it again, like we stop ourselves from just asking that question, because I truly don't know if this is a problem worth like that you feel is worth solving, and that's the only thing that matters. Like, do you feel like it's worth solving? I'm not gonna. I don't care if I think it's worth solving or not. I want to help you out.
right.
Yeah.
Right. And what you're saying is really important about listening. Is it sort of what are you hinting at? But that listening is much more important than talking in the
Mhm.
sales process. You ask, people love to talk about themselves. If you, as the teacher who's in the sales process, just shut up, create that empty space. Eventually they're going to talk, so you just
Yeah. There we
right.
go. There we go.
And this is something I learned. I was a journalist earlier in my career, to ask questions and then shut up. And whatever they answer is whatever they answer. And then you ask the next question after that, instead of trying to, so many people, this they're going to say next. But if you as a teacher, and this is good for teaching too, can get to the point where you ask the question and don't formulate what's going to happen next, and just let what happens next be whatever it is. Maybe it's going to be some amazing playing, or maybe they're going to reveal to you the real reason
Mhm.
that they want to do this is because grandma gave them a harp, and it would mean so much if I could play at my daughter's wedding. Okay, just saying that is giving me goosebumps.
Yeah.
Like, that's a real thing. That's a real need, a real desire for someone to come to me to learn to play. And it's
Mhm.
something that I'm actually working on with one of my students right now.
Love it. Love it. Yeah. Did you want to keep going? Feel free.
Yeah, we can keep going. So let me cruise through the other questions. So we've got to identify the problem, figure out their desire, figure out if they're doubting, like why are they looking for more support than doing it on their own? Why do they need? Why are they looking for a teacher? Because there's a lot of good information out there. People can do a lot on YouTube, or to work things out for themselves. So why are they coming for a teacher? So you want to know that. And it's a really good question, because they're like, if they get kind of fuzzy and hazy, you're like, well, maybe you're okay on your own. And it's okay to let them go.
Mhm.
It's okay to let it go. Okay, so consequence. So then this is a really great question. What is the cost of not solving the problem? what is it costing you to not have the problem solved right now? These are really good questions. They're a little hard to ask at first, and this is why you need to practice them, because it's not a question that you're not at a dinner party asking people sales questions.
I was literally
You
thinking that
know?
too. Like, how often are you even asking that question or
Right?
getting that? Or how often are you answering that question for someone else as well?
Right, right. So in the case of my harp student, the cost is that she's going to go to her daughter's wedding and not be able to play for her. And that's a once in a lifetime event. And so we need to get it done and get it right. Fortunately, we have enough time to do it, but not doing it was not an option for her.
Mm-hmm.
So this is making her a good sales prospect for me. Okay, so money. Are they willing to and able to invest in musical education? This is another question that you teach, and a lot of different sales training programs talk about. Do you like legitimately? Do you have the money to do this? And then we won't get into objections too much today, but if someone says, well, I'm not sure, then you can isolate the problem and say, well, if money were no object, is there any other reason that you wouldn't be taking this class from me, or you wouldn't be signing up for me? And
Mm-hmm.
then from there you can work out payment plans and stuff like that. Support. Do they have the support of the other decision makers? Crucial. If they're married, or
Mm-hmm.
this, you're talking to the parents of the student, you must have the buy-in of everybody who's got a signature on that check,
Yeah.
or it's not going to work. And trust. Do they trust you? How do they know you? Well, by the time you got through the other 6 questions and they're still there, they trust you.
Yeah.
They've shared a lot of personal information with you about their experiences as music purchasers of music education.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I like to ask them, are there any questions that I forgot to ask you?
Yeah, that's a good one.
Or any things that I didn't cover that you need to ask me? To again, just keep giving them the opportunity to both trust you and your line of questioning, but also for them at some point to go, no, it's really not for me. Then they're out of your hair.
Mm-hmm.
You're not chasing them, you know. But if they're there, they're like, yeah, I love you. I want to work with you. If
Yeah.
they've made it through all of these different, and you have scripts for all of this, that people can come to you for.
Yeah. So if
And it's
anyone
a
needs,
practice.
yeah, if anyone needs like help on sales scripting, feel free to talk to me. Feel free to talk to Cymber as well. We both can be able to help you out a lot with that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And if it's okay, I wanted to just finish up by saying that the sales company that I work for, Eric Law Firm International, has a little 3-part mini course called The System
Yes.
that I would love to give to your clients for free. All they need to do is just send me an email to cymber.quinn@gmail.com,
Yeah.
and I'll send you the link.
I love it. Oh yeah, I'll definitely include that for sure. But yeah, I think the whole
So
there we go. The whole aspect of like scripting and having the questions really important for it's just really important to have a system, right? It's kind of like having a lesson plan when you're first starting out as a teacher. Like it helps you out. It's like it helps you out with being able to teach and run the lesson smoothly. For the scripting, it's really important that we ask these questions so that at the end of the day, all we just want to do is help the student make a clear decision on what they should do next, whether that's
right.
getting help now, getting help later, um, doing things on their own first before getting help. Like all of that is really what's going to help them get a lot of clarity. And at the end of the day, like the result of staying detached from that outcome by truly just being there with intentionally helping people, helping them
Right.
make that decision, they're just naturally going to want to work with you
That's right.
as a result.
You're coming from a place of service rather than a place of buy this, right? You're like, want to help them. This has been on my desk for years. This is my sales strategy.
Oh, I love that. Wait, I have something like that too. Let me see if I can
Yeah,
find
help
mine.
people make the best decisions to get to their goals.
I have something like, where is it?
Oh yeah,
Certainty. And
right.
then, yeah.
Yep, yep. So what should your clients do? They should put Post-it notes like ours on their computers to help them remember that this is what it's
Exactly.
really all about. It's about
Ex-
service, it's about kindness, it's about compassion, it's about solving problems. It's not about selling used cars and being ooky and gross and all this. You don't even have to go there,
Mhm.
but you do have to sell.
Yep.
Stay in business. That's the definition of a business is you have some things to sell.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Well, again, always appreciate you, Cymber, for collabing and making some content with me.
Yeah.
If anyone wants to reach out to Cymber, I already have I have a client interview with her as well. She's got an amazing story. So feel free. I'll put all your information in like the description as well
Okay.
for anyone to contact you.
Great. Thank you so much.
Of course.